Tennessee's Wild Side, broadcast for nearly 2 decades, was originally created through a vision of the Jackson Foundation. The foundation remains a supportive partner in the mission to educate viewers about wildlife, natural resources, and opportunities for outdoor adventure.
It's estimated that there are 8.7 million species of animals in the world. Going to visit a zoo is a great way to see some of them, but not everything is in plain view. At Nashville Zoo, a mission of conservation for endangered species is intended to get results, not necessarily the spotlight.
Exotic animals from around the world are the superstars at the Nashville Zoo, ambassadors for the preservation of their species. The exhibits are designed as natural environments, presenting attractive and healthy habitats. But back behind the barriers, where a small boat sits side by side with a simple metal building, is a laboratory intended to rescue some native animals that live beneath our waters.
Each species sort of has its own issue with why it's becoming more and more endangered. And we're just doing what we can to keep them there and hopefully bolster populations and increase genetic diversity where they're still left.
Within the rows of aquariums are intriguing characteristics of cold-blooded creatures. The bulging eyes of a streamside salamander, the luring tongue of an alligator snapping turtle, and the unique sensitive skin of a hellbender, which is the largest salamander in North America.
This is some of my favorite work. To me, it's really important because I love streams and rivers in Tennessee. It's some of the most beautiful habitat. I've gotten to travel all around the world, and I'd rather be fly fishing or looking for a hellbender in a Tennessee stream than be anywhere else.
The hellbender, streamside salamander, and alligator snapping turtle are all aquatic species listed as endangered by the state of Tennessee.
Hey, buddy.
Here at the zoo, each one has its own designated caretaker.
And then I scoop out some fish.
Right now, it's feeding time for the hellbenders.
Put my fish in my bucket. And everybody loves fish. Because they will be eating live fish in the wild too, but most of their diet will be crayfish.
The hellbenders are here because of diminished quality in the large bodies of water where they typically live.
Hellbenders have a really unique relationship with water, especially hellbenders because they live in water 100% of their lives. And so they're exposed to any contaminants in the water, any problems in the water, it'll show up in them first. Amphibians have really sensitive skin, so they'll absorb a lot of things from the environment through their skin. So if there's something wrong that's affecting them, it's also potentially affecting us humans who need it for, drinking and living.
A worrisome loss of hellbenders happened fast. A study in the 1980s documented a healthy population of hellbenders across Middle Tennessee. But that would quickly change.
We went back to look for them in the late 90s, and all we could find is either no hellbenders or really, really big hellbenders in a few streams. And it's really based on how much of the watershed is left forested. And the only place where you can find fully forested watersheds is in national parks up in the mountains. And coincidentally, that's the only place you can find hellbenders where you can find all age class animals.
Researchers believe the loss may be occurring at the very vulnerable larva stage, possibly from erosion caused by the removal of trees or chemicals getting into the streams.
Generally, we see it quicker in watersheds that have a lot of agriculture, a quicker race to extinction in that watershed.
Federal grant money has allowed intervention by the Nashville Zoo, working with wildlife agencies and state universities to begin a breeding program. The small building allows these 3 creatures to breed in a controlled environment for eventual release into their natural habitats. The work also includes going out on location to test wild populations for disease.
So these are our youngest animals that we currently have. They were collected in 2017 from eggs. You can see them just swimming around right now. They do love to, for whatever reason, they all love to congregate together in their little hides. So sometimes you'll get like 2 together, and then sometimes you get a big party of them all together. For whatever reason, they just really like to all squish together.
While the hellbenders are in aquariums, the alligator snapping turtles of various sizes and ages have a home in a blue plastic container on the opposite side of the room. It's a little different than the reptile's natural habitat of rivers and swamps.
They like to stay in areas where there's enough water for them to hide, camouflage themselves, and there's plenty of food for them to come around. They'll sit very still up against any kind of embankment that looks like them in their coloration, and sit with their mouths wide open. They have this little projection on the end of their tongue, and they'll wiggle it around. Fish will come by and think they're going to get a worm and then snap. They get their dinner. So the roles change a little bit for them.
Alligator snapping turtles feast on fish, and yet the threat to their existence is blamed on the appetites of humans.
Turtle soup was a favorite dish, and up until the 60s, a large portion of the population would go out and set limb lines to catch turtles to make their turtle stew. So alligator snapping turtles were really just overhunted. The common snapping turtle is truly common because they lay huge numbers of eggs, and they can colonize an area really quick. They reach sexual maturity sooner. So common snapping turtles rebounded really quick where the alligator snapping turtle just couldn't.
The streamside salamander is the smallest of the 3 animals in the zoo breeding program.
The chances of most things surviving is pretty tough and hard, but I mean, we got to do what we got to do to try and help as much as we can.
The natural habitat of the streamside salamander is underground during the summer. In the winter, these are the only members of their family to breed on the underside of rocks in seasonal streams where there are no predators. But residential or business development can make these breeding streams disappear, and the streamside salamanders along with them.
Success rates on eggs and stuff, you gotta put a lot of animals back into the wild for them to actually make an impact, but you gotta start somewhere, and we're gonna start right here.
It's rare for any of these creatures to be seen in the wild, and while they are not as prominent as the furry and feathery animals featured at the zoo, there is now an 18-inch long hellbender and a 100-pound alligator snapping turtle on display in the Unseen New World exhibit. New ambassadors for the preservation of their species.
Zoos all over the world, one of their main goals is conservation. We want to conserve these animals. We want to make their habitat good enough that they can go back and they can live and survive and breed by themselves, and we don't have to do that.
Scientists at the Nashville Zoo work closely with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, along with researchers from Tennessee State University and Lee University.
Tennessee's Wild Side has been a presentation of the Jackson Foundation in association with Rockwater TV.